Ladies and gentlemen, for one of the best sports podcasts in the business, subscribe on YouTube to Shaky's Sports Journeys.
Hi and welcome to Shaky Sports Journeys. Another interesting episode lined up for you today. Please be sure to be subscribing to the channel. That'd be much appreciated. Today's guest, this man, I came in touch with him recently when I did a podcast with Barry Hearn, which was brilliant, and Devon kindly watched it, and he reshared it, and we engaged, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome to the channel professional darts player, pundit, commentator, the African warrior, Devon Peterson. How are you?
I'm really well. Thanks for that intro, and you forgot about dancer, model, entrepreneur.
Listen, we'll talk about that as this podcast goes on. I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, but great interview and great to have me. I mean, your Barry Hearn content, and this is the great thing about platforms and social media. Like, I saw that podcast, and obviously I gave you the plaudits that you deserve. I mean the way in which you kind of dictated the way in which the interview went, and it turned out to be something similar to a documentary almost. And yeah, when I messaged you, I didn't think of as reciprocating as in doing an interview. I just thought, let me just give you the plaudits. And when you reached out, I was like, yeah, I'd love to share my story and just kind of give insight as into where the African warrior is from and what he's been doing.
Brilliant. No, look, I'm really humbled by your feedback. It means a lot to me. And I'm excited to hear your story and your journey today. So, born in South Africa, lovely South Africa, a beautiful part of the world in Cape Town, on the 4th of June, 1986. Tell me about your family background, your childhood, what it was like growing up there.
So, obviously, with growing up in South Africa, I mean, the apartheid was a big thing. I was born in 1986. Apartheid was kind of lifted in a sense in 1994. So my short spell within the apartheid era was probably not even 8 years, if you must call it that. And a lot of people ask me about questions about apartheid, so I thought that I just bring it in the beginning. I don't remember a lot of it being direct influence on the family, simply because I was too young. And I think that my family itself, the colored community, already were almost brainwashed in a sense to keep everything your kids were not going to areas like that. So you wouldn't have seen anything like that. So my childhood was pure bliss. I grew up in Mitchell's Plain, which people refer to it as an area full of gangsterism, drugs, and a lot of sporting talent. I saw that firsthand in my area as well, all three of those, and seeing talents like the likes of Monique Josephs, JP Dumini from our area. My brother used to play semi-professional football as well from a young age for Hellenic. So these are things that you kind of see, and then you kind of go to a point where they don't some of them don't make it, some of them do, like the likes of JP. He's done fantastically well, and a lot of other cricketers that come from kind of rural backgrounds, if you must call it that. But yeah, my upbringing was probably like any other kid. Just sports was a seasonal thing. So whether it was football for the winter, cricket for the summer, you'd go to swimming. I have two older brothers, so and a lot older. One was 10 years older than me and 14. So me seeing them kind of do their things, it was kind of like that role model kind of sense in it. And my dad was obviously the dart player in the family, and in his family as well, we comes from a generation of dart players as well. So their entire family, all the brothers, I think there were 8 brothers, they played in a team together. So yeah, when you go to family gatherings, darts is always a thing. And I only literally picked up darts later on. Like you always around the game, but I used to play football all the time growing up. And yeah, it was just growing up in South Africa, you get to experience a culture that you don't even know you're experiencing until you leave South Africa and you come to another place and you realize the differences in culture and upbringing. So yeah, my upbringing was fantastic. I mean, I thought that we lived like kings, and then you realize that when you leave there, it's like your parents probably just made it as best as they can and did what they could for you and given me all the opportunities that I've obviously received now and living that kind of life and understanding as well, because I think that your parents obviously teach you these things without you knowing, so the disciplines and all of that. And as a kid, you obviously always rebel to a point where until it becomes, the discipline becomes a bit physical. Back then, physical discipline was kind of not frowned upon in a sense. But it's not that it's to a point where you grow up like I have grown up and you realize that back then it was just life lessons that they were putting in place early on already. And yeah, so if I look at where I grew up in Mitchell's Plain as well, the community is a very tight-knit community and everybody knew everybody and all the kids were playing out together. Now these days you don't get kids playing out in the roads anymore. You don't get kids interacting. It's more on social media or Fortnite or gaming and stuff like that. Back when I grew up, it was, if somebody had a football, he was your best friend. If somebody had a cricket bat and a ball, yeah, and you would hit it into people's yard, gardens and stuff, and they would keep the balls because they'd get irritated of us jumping over and spoiling their flowers. So yeah, I think all of those things. I mean, you grow up and you look back and you think how great your childhood was and how blissful it was, simply because of the naivety of life. I mean, you woke up, you went to school, and my primary school was to the left of the house. My high school was to the right, 2 minutes walk of each distance. So it was really great, like a village kind of mentality. And yeah, it was still have all my friends back home in South Africa in the roads. And when I do visit, which used to be quite often, now almost twice a year, you still get to hang out with them, and then you rekindle those memories and you just pick up from where you left off. And those are the friendships that you never kind of lose. So yeah, growing up was great. And I think it's carved me out to be the man that I am today.
Awesome to hear about all of that. I was going to ask you, where did the darts come from? But it was obviously in the blood. You mentioned your father was a darts player. It sounds like there must have been some healthy competition going on in the family.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you look at. So we had it was a 3-bedroom house, and my eldest brother, he had the dartboard in his room, so that would be the practice room, evidently. And I was always, if my dad and my brothers were in the room, I wasn't allowed to be in the room, simply because I was too young to play the game. And thus I was probably like 10, and they wouldn't want me to play with them because they thought that I wasn't skilled or capable. And when they would leave, I would kind of sneak in there and obviously have a practice on my own, or when they're not there, or during the day. And yeah, like you say, I mean, it runs rich. Like my grandfather played with all his sons, and then I played with my dad as well in the team. And my dad still plays today, and he assists with an events company called Last Man Standing that I've established in South Africa to host events to qualify for the World Champs and the World Cup in the UK and Europe as well. So my dad is an integral part, and like any father or most fathers is a pillar and a backbone of my support, you know what I mean? And my biggest critic as well. So yeah, I think if you look at the sport itself, the darts and everything, like my brother played football, so I played football up and until the age of 14, and I realized I wasn't going to be as great as he was. And I then obviously leaned towards darts, which I didn't really expect for it to kind of take off like it did. But yeah, I think even back then I was infatuated with the level that you needed to be to perfect the game. And from a young age, I realized, like, I'm watching my dad, and my dad was a local kind of, if you call it a community kind of champion in a sense, because our leagues was played in our area. So, and my dad won it back to back, and he always kind of rags me for it because I only won it once, and he's like the champion in that kind of space. So yeah, I think those kind of influences, and you realize quite quickly that when you see your parents do what they do from a sporting background, and you play sports as well, and when your kids see you play sport, they kind of pick it up and they fall in love with the game. Like I've recently fallen in love with golf, and I saw Charlie Woods and Tiger Woods kind of play, and that would simply be is him seeing his dad, and I kind of resonate with that, and I think that's where my kind of hard work and ethic also comes from in the game, because my dad was one that liked to practice, so he would have his practice times, and obviously that dwindled like later on in these years. But yeah, it's the darts is in our family, and we also even used to have, and I think about it now, we used to have like competitions in the household. So my brother
Yeah, I
used
can
to come
imagine.
home.
I'm just thinking that there must have been some in-house tournaments.
Yeah, no doubt. So my brother used to come in, my eldest brother, he used to come in from work, and we would play like a 1st to 10 every single night, and he used to whoop me completely. He was the best. He was the second best in the house. My dad, yeah, he was the champ, and my second eldest brother, he wasn't too interested. But yeah, now it's completely changed. Like when I'm in the practice room, they have to leave because I can't waste my time.
You're the man. You're the man now. So at what age did you realize and that switch happened, in your head that this is what I want to do and this is route I'm going? And I think I'm good enough to do this.
I think I could remember I was probably 16, 17 going into my grade 12 year. And I remember my dad saying, if you want to play the sport with me at the level that I played, you'll have to practice all the time. And then we'll have a competition at the end, and then we'll enter you in a competition and see how you do. I remember it was when I was 16, because that entire year for my matric year and all of that, I used to, in my spare time, used to practice. So I used to go out like with the friends and kind of to malls and gaming and stuff like that. But darts was my number one thing. And I quickly realized that there was a strategy how you could make the regional team. So we got the local team, which I obviously when I joined the league, and then I was aiming for the regional team, which is a massive thing within our local community in a sense, because then you play against other regions, and then you play against teams in South Africa, and you go to a national. So yeah, I mapped out, not knowing that I was going to achieve these things that I mapped out, and kind of almost planning a destiny without really planning it, if you must call it that, because I just aspired to be one of the better players. And when my dad used to go to the venue to go play darts, I used to watch the better players, like the South African. So I think we had 2 representatives of South Africa playing in our local league, so Protea players. So it was great to see, and you could aspire to, and you knew how much the work ethic that came in. So you look at all of those things, and when I turned 17 and I matriculated after my grade 12, I then took that kind of summer, because I knew that it was going to be after that the league would start and I would have to kind of compete. So I took that entire summer and I started practicing 3 hours a day after I completed my grade 12. And yeah, after that it was something that stayed with me forever. Like practicing 3-4 hours a day isn't a problem, because I'd done it at a young age. And when I got to the league, I realized very quickly that because I put so much effort in, and I never started completely at the bottom, because my dad obviously filtered down his experience, his knowledge about the game and the breakdowns, which is such an important thing also. And just also noting that when you compete against him, you have to be at your very best, because he's not going to give you a chance. Even though I was the youngest, you'd think that my dad would give me an opportunity. No, you'd have to beat him. He wants to be the top all the time. And he says that until today. He says, nobody must ever have an opportunity to brag that they beat you. Don't give them an opportunity, because you can't say that you gave them anything. You must take it all the time. And that's what champions do. And that's what my dad instilled in me. And so, yeah, I think definitely probably the age of 17. And yeah, I think I remember making the regional, the local team, the team that goes to the national event at the age of 18. And then, yeah, after that, it was provincial. And then I made the Protea team, and then I'm now the professional.
Well, that's what I mean. The backstory is amazing. I mean, I didn't know until now when we sit down and talk. I know what you've achieved in your professional career, and we're going to talk about that now. But the backstory is incredible. I like the fact that your dad kept your feet on the ground and made you earn the victories, because it probably stood you in very good stead when you got into the professional ranks, that you never got anything easy. Dad didn't let you win just because you were the little little kid in the family. And I think that's a really good way for anybody out there. I mean, there's a line, obviously. You don't want to be too harsh on the kids where you're kind of putting them off the game, but making them earn something is only going to make them stronger, especially if they're aspiring to play it as a profession.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, even at that time, there was no professional kind of opportunities for us. At that time, there was no Q school, there was no nothing. You just to be a pro tier, there was an opportunity to be a pro tier. All you just needed to do was work hard. My dad told me that from the start. If you want to play for the South African team, all you have to do is just work hard. And I realized now everything that he said back then, I still use today. And the way in which I think with what my dad taught me by being not harsh, but being so strong and making you realize that, like you said, nothing is going to be given to you in life. So becoming a professional, you know that you're going to get there. It's every dog wants to eat that bone all the time. Like you get the top dogs that stay on the bone and some just scrabble from meat. And sometimes they get challenged. And that's where you come, and that's where you find that you kind of have that battling spirit, if you must call it that. And it's great. I mean, I teach that. My son's only 3 years old, and I already teach him that now. Like we will shoot hoops in the living room, and he'll have to fetch the ball, and I'll lift the hoop higher so that he has to reach. It's not going to be easy where you just dunk it in all the time. You're going to have to now. And at a young age, I mean, it's not that you kind of, I want him to be a basketball player, which will be great. But I just want him to kind of get that etiquette that I just need to reach every time further. I shouldn't settle for what I have. And that's what they say. Like if you're in your comfort zone, you're in the wrong place, basically, because you need to be uncomfortable and move up and grow. And that's kind of the sentiments my dad put into me. And now I'm kind of loving it and continuing to work hard at my profession as well to kind of achieve my future goals, which obviously we'll touch on. But I'm sure that as a parent now, I can see what my dad has kind of tried to instill in me, and I will surely kind of take that kind of mental and place it on my kid's side as well, and kind of push him in the same way.
Well, it's clearly worked well, because young South African boy, born and bred Cape Town, Mitchell's Plains, with big dreams, has now gone on to qualify for 7 PDC World Championships. And in 2014, 19, and 21, you reached the last 16 of those championships. That's a great achievement. Did you ever in your wildest dreams think you would get to that level?
Not really, though. Like, I think if you, I would have probably snapped your hand off when I started, because I used to watch VHS tapes of the likes of Andy Fordham, Kevin Painter, Eric Bristow as well, like borrowed tapes from like other dart guys that actually got the tapes from and have it brought from the United Kingdom. And you sit back now and you realize how intense it is watching the game, and then you being able to kind of plan your destiny and plot that points and then actually achieve it. It's a thing that I've learned. Like, you can achieve anything. And I know that sounds cliche. It's not even, it's one of those posters you get, like, achieve anything, believe it, and all of those things. But it is actually true. Like a boy from Mitchell's Plain that has a background in darts and needed to work hard, came over to the UK to get a tour card, not knowing anybody in the United Kingdom, and then getting a tour card, finding sponsorship, now finding himself living the dream after having that opportunity and giving up his job and just believing that he can achieve it. It could have gone so wrong if I done all of that and I didn't succeed at the first time. Do you know what I mean? But I find that now, and I realize that in life there's no Mount Everest in life. Like, literally all you got to do is just every step that you take, make sure that it's a forward step, whether it's a centimeter, whether it's a mile step, it does not matter. As long as you move forward progressively, you will achieve your goals. And this is what I've realized going up and now getting to the world champs. It's still a massive moment for me, but I know that it's not a big It's not a, because sometimes you can get to an event and it can just consume you and just be like a shadow. Instead of celebrating and enjoying it, people fear that moment. And this is why sometimes people don't perform as great as they want to or expect at events, simply because of the moment is so big. And a lot of people call it the BMT and all of these things. All you got to do is embrace it and know that you are exactly where you needed to be, which is there. That is it. So yeah, I think if I'm talking to the 18-year-old Devon Peterson, I'm going to be telling him everything will be okay. Just make sure you take one step at a time and enjoy the entire journey. That's it.
Class, mate. Absolute class. You're a bit of a dancer, Devon. You're a bit of a character. I did some. I've watched some videos of you. You like to, which I think is it's actually interesting speaking to Barry on the podcast. He talks about characters and personalities, and darts is really, really massive on that. You all come into like boxer type music or your different types of music. The crowd's going mental. You get up on stage, you engage with the crowd. It's very much like a boxer coming in for a fight. Darts is I find it very, very similar. Your trademark is you like to dance a bit to Shakira, Waka Waka, this is Africa. Where did that come from? And tell me about your mindset with how was it something you thought about when you got to the World Championships of how you want to engage with your audience?
I think it's something that just kind of, when, like you say, when Barry Hearn was talking about characters, to be a character, you can't act as a character. It's just ingrained in you. So I'm generally like that. Like it's always laugh, banter, all of those things around. You know what I mean? And when you need to be serious, you have to be serious. I remember the day I got to the World Champs and I did like a little shuffle on stage. I can't remember who I played, but I did, and the dancers were dancing on stage, and I just kind of in a rhythm. And then I won that game, fortunately enough. And the next day, I had to do some interviews, and these walk-on girls were doing like, the dancers, they were doing like their routine. And they had a massive mirror. And as I was walking past, I kind of jumped in front of them and did like this body popping thing. And the producer saw it and he says, "Can you do that on stage when you play again?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." And not even thinking that, like some people will probably get like nervous or a bit edgy and, "Oh, I don't know if I can." And I was literally like, "Yeah, of course. This is like, it's part of the entertainment. I'm here. It's slightly different. I know it's different because I've not seen anybody do anything like that up and until that moment." And then got there. And then when I danced, I could literally hear the crowd roar. Like, like when they're excited to see you and the music's on, and then that roar, just almost like everybody was surprised and laughing and clapping, and just it was a euphoric moment for me, because I felt, when you make your mark in a sense, it was that, like, I felt so comfortable on the stage. I can't remember if I won or lost or whatever happened after that. And since that day, every time I do the dance on stage, it has a calming effect on me, because it makes me feel as though I own the stage. Whatever the other player does, if he performs brilliantly and he beats me, that's great. He's prepared well. I've missed opportunities or whatever. But for that moment, I'm enjoying it for the utmost. It's my moment. Basically, that's all it is. And the dance itself, like before the mirror there wasn't a significance to the mirror, because it's something that I used to do in the nightclubs, like when you're dancing and guys make a circle and you know what I mean, and you do all of that stuff, and it's just like something out the ordinary. But I realized in doing that, it signifies the only person that you're competing against is yourself. So when you look at that mirror, it is you looking at yourself, and you are competing against yourself, nobody else. And I think that now resonates with me every time I do it. And the more I understand it and I dive into some meditation side of it, and you understand like how to unlock all of these things, triggers like that before a game is probably the most calming thing. Some people do different things, but that for me is my trigger. And I think that I'll probably be known as a dancer, not as a dart player. But I don't mind. I mean, from an entertainment perspective, I enjoy it, and I like to see exactly what it does, not just at the big events, but at exhibitions. You see people, like I went to the golf club the other day and I walked in and somebody said, "It's Devon Peterson. How come you're not dancing?" And I just came in, I'm like, there's no music and I don't just dance while I'm walking around, you know what I mean? So yeah, you realize that sometimes things like that stick, and I'm happy that that's one of the good things that stick. I'm glad I didn't do like a Peter, right, kind of bouncing up and down, because that would just tire me out before the game even started.
So in game time, World Championship games, what's the pressure like, and how do you focus on that? I mean, the crowd is very noisy, you know. I could always picture, if I played a little bit of darts, very, very badly. Pool or snooker is more my game, but I can imagine when the nerves come, you know, the hand has to be in so much control, the fingers. I mean, I'm not going to start going into technique because I'm no darts player, but if you're tense or a little bit nervous, I could imagine, even playing from cricket point of view, when you go in, sometimes you're a bit tense with the bat. How do you control that when you're out there in the lights and the pressure is on?
I think I always use the first game as a kind of a measuring stick as into how I'm feeling. So the first game would always give me, if I'm edgy, I will kind of try and throw the edginess out in that first leg. Okay. Simply because it's the first leg and the game will evolve. That is, you don't lose a game at the first leg. So almost not sacrificing, but you come from the background, from behind the scenes, and you come from the practice room. So I'm in the practice room for almost 4 hours. So I'll have my routine
before the match.
4 hours. Yeah. So you kind of build up to that, and before that, I mean, I start kind of preparing for the World Champs already mid-November. So you kind of in your game, you kind of practicing all of these routines. So by the time it gets to that World Champs, the crowd noise is, when it's at its loudest, you don't hear anything. It's simply like it's like a humming sound constantly, which makes you focus even better. And when that humming sound, that pitch rises, it kind of pushes the adrenaline even more. Sometimes games can go in a lull, and then they would just then scream something or do a shout, and I'll distract myself with what they're doing and come back, and you'll find yourself refreshed. So not having the crowds for the last events last season, it's taken away that element, and you kind of needed to kind of navigate through all of those things on your own as a player, because sometimes the crowd can help you a lot, and you don't realize that until they were taken away or not at the event. So yeah, I think pressure wise, I think the only pressure you feel as a player is when you actually do the walk on. So there's like 2 minutes before you go to the where you're standing, where everybody obviously sees you on the camera. So there's 2 minutes before that. Crowd, they're settling the crowd, everybody's walking up, and you know at that point it's game time. So almost as if the adrenaline's now kind of bubbling up, and when you walk onto that, through the curtains, onto that red carpet, the nerves just leave your body, because everybody is there wanting a piece of you. And if you embrace that moment, your nerves, you become part of the event, you become part of you become the event. And once you can accept that and just know that all your preparation you've done before is correct, you trust your technique, you trust your game, all you just have to do is perform. I mean, that's the simplest thing. It's literally lift up and throw. It's 10 seconds literally every time you have to throw. And the technique now is, you kind of, like, I've changed some of my stuff in my technique, which has helped me improve my game. Once your technique is okay, I mean, that confidence level going into that tournament, I mean, you know, if you come off from scoring maybe a 50, and now the next game you maybe score 35, but you know that you're striking the ball and you're seeing it consistently on the bounce all the time. Your eyes become, the treble looks as big as you see a cricket ball, like probably like a football, and you can't miss it. So it's the same thing. And once you start kind of resonating with the crowd, like they can feel your confidence and see you performing So the screams get louder, and then the competition goes, and especially when it's an intense battle, that for me is it is the moment of any dart player is when you're in an intense battle at the World Championships.
Yes, I mean, watching on, it gets really. I can feel the tension sometimes when you're watching, and two guys are under, or two women as well, are under serious pressure. The crowd is there. I just thought to myself, it must get quite. The arm must get a bit tense. But
It does get tense though. It does get tense simply because, and you can see it, especially when it's a hurdle game, which is the match-winning game, or a set-winning leg, or something like that, which is something that, as professionals, I mean, you get used to getting into those scenarios because we perform every week. I mean, not every week, but week in, week out, and you play on stage a lot and stuff like that. And as a young player coming into the game, or a new player coming into the game, they kind of have to find their feet the hard way. But like everything, I mean, you can't, there's no amount of money that you can pay for experience, and this is something that you just have to you have to do. So yeah, I think the pressure and all of that stuff, it all comes from inside. Outside is just noise and distraction. Inside, the pressure is so how you deal with it on the inside is the most important thing. Success comes from the inside. Hard work, peace, happiness, joy, all from the inside. The external is just distraction.
It sounds like you really enjoy it when you're out in the middle, as we'd call it in cricket, but you're out on the stage. It sounds like it's your happy place. But it's interesting to hear, because I reckon there's a lot of other darts players out there, youngsters coming through, who haven't been able to master that yet, and they're still trying to deal with the occasion because it is such a big occasion. So I think people that manage to have a listen to this will take a lot from it. In 2013, I noticed you suffered an injury to the arm. Did you go through an operation? How was that period for you? What happened?
Oh, that was probably the worst thing in my entire life. And I think that, and I spoke to another gentleman at not at the time, but probably 3 years after that, realizing what happened. But if, like, I was going to gym every day, bench pressing and doing all, because I wanted to change the way in which I look, so that I could kind of conform to, or not conform to, what a dart player looks like. You know what I mean? Like, people think a dart player is bald, fat, and drinks pints. You know what I mean? And it's now more athletic. If you look at the top players and players coming through, is like, there's a lot of young players now than there was before. And looking back then, I thought, if I change the kind of my narrative, I would stand out, not just being African and being the only African, but I'll be probably in a small group of players that look different as well. So injured my wrist, had some tendon problems, went back home, did therapy for a year and a bit. And when that happened, I probably went through a mini kind of stint of depression, and I never knew it at the time. Because simply at that time, I thought everything that I've wanted, everything that I've lived for is gone. Like, I couldn't even throw a dart. My tendon was damaged, and if I took my dart out of my hand, it wasn't doing this.
All right, okay.
It played like that. And I remember calling my dad, and I was crying on the phone. And at that time, I was a 25-year-old man, and and I was crying, and I said, "Listen, I'm gonna have to come home, and because I don't think I can play anymore." And my dad could not believe, because he had all of these dreams for me as well, and seeing me achieve these things. I remember flying on the plane back home, and I thought to myself, if this plane crashed now, it will probably be okay. Like, I wouldn't panic. I was feeling so down about me not being able to ever potentially throw a dart again. And when I got home, I realized that maybe darts isn't everything. Maybe I needed that time to get home and kind of rekindle, because I left South Africa, stayed in the UK, kind of navigated this big world on my own, with a lot of support from people back home, but nobody here. I mean, Joe Cullen was absolutely, he literally adopted me as his brother, if you must call it that. Like, I stayed with him. We practiced, we traveled together, but obviously not me and Joe just met that year, and you realize how important friendships are like that. And it's very seldom that you find that immediately. And I'm lucky to still consider or have him in my life as we go on now, and him doing so well. But I realized then, like, depression is actually a massive thing. Like, mentally, like, I felt like it wasn't suicidal thoughts, but it was thoughts of, if I died now, I mean, it would probably be better, because I felt as though my career, my darting career has ended. Got home, family welcomed me with open arms. Me and my dad had a sit down. I had a practice with him, and I couldn't throw. And he said, let's leave the darts. Let's forget about the darts. Let's come back at a time when you can. And then few months went by. My dad suggested I go for therapy on my wrist and not an operation. And my dad kind of made sure that everything was kind of comfortable. And he was the one that slowly but surely got me back to where I needed to be, which was crazy, because his career, darting career at that time, I'm going to say his career at that time, in the darts, or his sport itself, was kind of going on the outside. He's playing in the B team. He wasn't anymore the top dog, but he was still there mentality-wise. And he used to put me through my paces mentally and get me there progressively, and just kind of coast me through it. And then a year and a half went by, and I found myself back in an opportunity to qualify for the Worlds, which I did qualify for. And I always think of those moments that I lost everything. And that is the moments that I make sure I remember, and that's what made me work hard every single day. Simply because that is the feeling I would never want to feel ever again in my entire life. And now I look at it now, and you get all these rewards, and people obviously supporting you and clapping, and success, and screaming your name from the top of the buildings. Well, not that exaggerated, but you know what I mean? And now it's like, yeah, everybody's on the, but back then it felt such a lonely place, even though you had all the support. So yeah, I feel as though, I think that was, at that time, I was a positive person before that happened. When that happened, I didn't know who I was. And then when I came back, I embraced every single energy or positive energy that I could find, whether it be spiritual, whether it be meditation, whether it be friendships, support, opportunities, every single thing that came away from a positive, like, I've embraced it fully, and I find myself now in probably the best mental position, and probably the best position mentally to achieve in the sport.
It's interesting. I speak to sports people from all different sports, and it's majority of them face adversity at some point in their career, and it's the worst moment. They all say it at that time. They could have left the sport. They could have walked away. It was a bad time for them, facing depression or whatever it may have been. But when they do come back, they're stronger for that experience, because if everything is just plain sailing, sometimes you maybe don't appreciate it. It maybe comes to you a little bit, and once you face that, the mind changes, and it sounds like you were a lot stronger version of yourself when you came back. You went on to play in, you've played in, I think, you've made the last 16 two times since that adversity in the World Championships. So clearly it was a good thing. And your father, I mean, his name keeps coming up. What is your father's name?
His name is George Peterson, and yeah, he's. I think you, a lot of the times, because we speak every single day, so whether it's just normal chit chat and stuff like this, and when you have like communication, like we conversating now about stuff like that, it makes me realize how strong my dad is in my career. And simply because he's always there, I don't maybe acknowledge it as much as I should, in a sense. Like, you don't literally say, thanks, Dad, for always being there. Simply because he's always there, and you say, thank you for everything else all the time. But you realize him. You just made me realize that now.
Listen, I've got a very similar relationship with my father. He had a real big passion for cricket, and I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. But at the tough times, my father would always be there, and it's true, we take it for granted sometimes, but I don't think you take it for granted, because from the start of this chat so far today, your father has come up on numerous times in our chat, So shout out to Mr. Peterson. You've done a fine job, sir. Who's the toughest player you've ever played?
Toughest player, I think it has to be Phil Taylor. Like, I've played him probably not now. Like, I played him in a few exhibitions and I actually beat him, which was kind of mind blowing for me because he's my idol, and we conversate like on text, and I reach out to him a lot about from the mental side of the game, obviously being the greatest to ever throw the tungstens. But yeah, it was Phil Taylor. I mean, the man had a presence like no other. Like, he would walk in, like you would see everybody there, right? And he would walk in and he's about this short, but it seemed as though he wasn't walking. He floated in the room with his arms wide. He just had an aura about him, and knowing him now, I mean, and being able to know him on a personal level, you can understand why, and he intentionally did it that way. So yeah, definitely Phil Taylor. But my toughest match was Ian White in it could have been the 2019 World Champs, because Ian White was ranked number 1 on the Pro Tour Order of Merit. And I needed to beat Ian White to maintain my tour card. Because at that time I was world number 75, losing my tour card because I had my worst season in 2018. I changed my technique, my throw, worked with Wayne Mardle. Wayne Mardle assisted me like you can't believe. And that game was probably an indicator, a tick the box for me mentally. I sat back and I thought, I'm going to play Ian White, and I know how great he's consistent. Ian White was leading 2-0. I ended the game 3-2, and it gave me an opportunity to maintain my tour card. And now I'm in world number 25 because of that moment. It could have been so much different if I lost that game. I went to Q school, maybe didn't make it, and we would not be having this conversation. So that was probably, yeah. So the Ian White game and Phil Taylor different.
2-0 down, big thing on the line there. You're losing your tour card. You found that inner strength there then to come back from there, because that really is. I mean, I'm no darts professional. As a fan, I know roughly reasonable amount about the game, but I know that you would have been up against it there. He's got the two. He's 2 ahead, and you can't really slip up now.
Yeah, it was all or nothing. I remember walking off the stage and just saying, he is doing nothing wrong. All you just got to do now, stick to your guns, trust the process. If the stars align for you, take it as that. And at the time, he was averaging 112, not missing a thing. Oof. And I think he went off the stage probably knowing he's confident, he's comfortable, he's beating me. Not easily, because I'm in there all the time, but he's just that much better at that point. And I put my darts like Phil Taylor. I remember walking down, and I looked to the left where our VIP section is and where the support is, and everybody was sat there, and everybody's like just geeing you up and saying, come on now, you know. It was the first time my son was also there at the event, and that time he was probably at 6 months old, so he didn't know obviously what was happening. And you know that when you look over and you just realize at that point, like there's something that just gave you strength. Like there was a feeling of strength. And I remember coming out to that, and I'm just saying, there's a Muhammad Ali kind of YouTube thing where I'm going to show you how great I am. And I just kept on saying that as I was walking up to the stage, to the Oki, and I got there, and I realized at that moment, like it's a do or die. I mean, you could either end this as a superhero, or you could end this as you're gonna have to go to Q school in jail. And luckily for me, I found a lot of strength. We got to a sudden death leg. I just popped him to the post there. He missed the double tops. I took out the double 10, and he stood there and he clapped and he shook his head, because after that we spoke, and he said, I threw everything at you, and every single time you came back. But that was his view. My view was, he was so phenomenal. I didn't know how I was going to win. I don't even know today how I won that game. Like, I only know the end part, like how the movie ends. I did not know the middle part and what was happening. Mentally wise, I just went. I don't even know what happened. Like, honestly, I watched the highlights of this game continuously simply because I know that I discovered something in that game that I never knew I had. And that was a tick box for me that kind of gave me the platform for the 2019, 2020, and now currently in 2021, gave me that kind of strength and confidence to always know that I have that ability and believe in my ability. Whether you're struggling with your technique, whether you're feeling as though your game is not at its sharpest, like waves. I mean, if you look at the sea, sometimes the sea is wavy, sometimes it's flat. When it's flat, that's when you sail nicely. When it's wavy, that's when you have to be kind of earn your stripes as a captain of a ship, and that's what makes better captains. I mean, sail through that rough seas. So yeah, sometimes you got to just go through the rough seas to kind of find the flat glass-like kind of seabed.
And as you say, you went on from there. You're now top 25 in the world, which is amazing. But again, these moments, your injury, that match, 2 down. It's just, you look back. You're always going to look back, and you'll tell your grandchildren about these stories and say, it might not always have went like that for me. I had moments in my career where it could have went differently, and you can pass that experience on to the next generation now. And that's going to bring me to something I'm really interested in asking you about. You've set up an academy in South Africa for opportunities for youngsters out there to take up darts and have opportunities. Tell me how it came about. Tell me what's going on with it and how it's going.
So at this point in time, I mean, like, darts is simply a adult game in South Africa. So it's played at night. It's played where there's booze on sale. So there's nothing really, not even in the school system. Our sports is cricket, football, and rugby at school. Yeah. And I realized that those opportunities for kids, athletic kids, like, for example, you'll see a kid when he's younger, growing up, you can see where he kind of leans towards. But there's kids that kind of hand and eye coordination, but they're not the quickest. Yeah. They're maybe not the fittest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
And I realized that there's an opportunity for kids like me, in kind of, even whether it's poverty, whether it's affluent, the game is a leveler. I mean, if you look at different sports like golf, it's expensive to kind of start up. You have to do coaching. So that's more leaned towards the affluent people, parents that can afford that. Football, something similar. There's scouting and all of this. Darts is the one sport that you can actually become a professional in your room. Like, I became a professional playing in my room. There's no special stadium. There's no special gym equipment. There's nothing special. As a dart player, all you just have to do is refine your technique and work hard. And I realized that if we instill this disciplines and understanding to kids at a young age, we can then create an academy, and a strong academy. South Africa is filled with talent. The one thing that we don't have in abundance is opportunity. And the JDC in the UK, which is Steve Brown and the different directors with him there, we've always been in contact, and I've always wanted to start an academy. And I think that when my profile grew, I think it became a bit easier for me to kind of speak to people about an academy, because I think people never took darts as serious until they started seeing me more on TV, until they started hearing more interviews. And now I'm at the point where I've now reached out to Steve Brown, and now we're setting up the Devon Peterson Academy in association with JDC, which will give kids the opportunity under the age of 18 to travel. So a lot of kids don't travel. I mean, you could find probably one of the best talented kids playing the sport, but there's no opportunity. So they will play, and then they'll go and play another sport maybe, and then still not achieve anything. Where if you hone your talent, we could see there's opportunity. And now you have a professional that has experience, that has the know-how, that can actually assist. Darts is probably one of the most individual sports that you can carve out a career for yourself by yourself. Like, there's some support that you will need, but initially it's all you. It's only you. And now at the point where we are at this, everything is set up to go. But South Africa, obviously, within the COVID, it's now third wave, so no contact sports, which darts is not. but gatherings in halls and stuff like that is kind of not happening. So at this point in time, it's slightly stalled, but we have 11 kids at this point in time to jump onto to the opportunity, and then hopefully get them to compete in the JDC World Champs, a World Cup as Team South Africa, which will be the first one. Once that happens, then I think that we would be able to create content and a marketing around these kids to make it more appealing to other kids at other schools. Because simply darts is a dartboard, enough space and 3 darts. And literally 10 kids can play with 3 darts and they'll all have the same experience.
Yeah.
So you look at the economics of the game as well. It's such a simple opportunity. And also a lot of the times within these communities, there's a lot of gangsterism and drugs, and keeping kids off the streets now, that's an important thing. So it's not just keeping them in the house, it's keeping their attention at the level where they'll find it appealing. And this is what we want to achieve. And I think that we have the things in place. And once you can show kids that there's an opportunity and you can aspire to be not a Devon Peterson, but a professional dart player, there's a career in it. I mean, if I look at me, when I was growing up, you could either play football, rugby, or cricket. If you weren't good at that, you're not doing any sport at school. So now that we at this point, we're speaking to the right people, and I think that it's going to be something that is going to unearth talent in Africa like you can't believe. And in my vision, it's going to be, at this point in time, you see a lot of the bulk of the talent in the UK. Right, so English players are really good simply because they have the mentality of, you go to a pub, there'll be a dartboard, and pubs are kind of family gathering. Just because there's alcohol, I mean, it doesn't mean that they're gonna be drinking. But I think that introducing them to the sport like that, and there's always kind of darts in and around everybody's house, literally. So you look at it now, and in South Africa, if my dad didn't play darts, I would not be playing darts. Simply because we don't have the pub culture, we don't have anything like that. So what we're going to do is we'll be pushing it through with sponsorships through the schools and setting up academies where, when I get home, it's coaching face-to-face, and then we'll be doing virtual coaching like we are doing now. Yeah. So I think that the platforms have expanded, social media has changed the way in which you can coach and assist, and also then just opening up these doors. And the more tournaments you have and the more exposure you have to the sport, it's only going to change the way in which we see darts. And maybe in the next 10, 15 years, we might see a flurry of African kids, and yeah, the world might change on a darting sphere, and it won't just be one South African flag on the whole entire 128. It might be like when you were watching the US Open, there was a few golfing South African superstars in there, which was great to see, and it's something that I aspire to achieve, and I'll make it my full goal to achieve that.
No, it's great to hear that you're prepared to give back, especially to where you come from. As you say, opportunities are, if you start an academy here in the UK, I'm sure you could do something successful, but the opportunities, as you say, are probably there. People can see a pathway, whereas you're the perfect man to market that, and you know, be a mentor to these youngsters coming through. And my hope is that one of these boys from the academy, you know, or a couple of them, and maybe we see an African world champion. You're still in the hunt. There's no reason why you can't, you know, you can't get over that line. You're still a young pup. But it would be nice, I mean, to see, as you say, others, but not just competing at the top level. And I think it's awesome what you're doing. And as you say, we're in tough times at the moment, so I'd imagine it's a bit slower going. But once life returns to normality, hopefully soon, I hope to see more and more, because it's really interesting what you said as well. We're not all born and blessed with the athleticism to play football, rugby, and cricket. And no disrespect to darts, but you know, you maybe don't need to be able to run the 100 meters in 10 seconds, or you know, stuff like that. So but I think with darts, it's got so much to do with your mental strength. And I think somebody like yourself mentoring these kids would be awesome. I've got to coming to the end of our chat now. It's been an absolute pleasure to listen to you. The insight you give and your knowledge of the sport and just general. I mean, I've been relating to it, and I'm sure other sports people will as well, from all different fields. But I have to ask you I come from a cricket club called Kelburn Cricket Club up here in Scotland. That's who I play for currently. Massive darts fans. I mean, they have darts tournaments. They've actually started a Kelburn darts team, so they play in a local league. They're always down at the Alley Pally every other year. They dress up. They love it. They're still trying to get me down, and I reckon I'll have to make a visit. But if you could give a shout out to the Kelburn Cricket Dart boys, that would be much appreciated, boss.
To the Kelburn Cricket Dart players, continue to work hard, and hopefully we see you at a Q School or at the World Champs dressed up as crazy cricket boys. Look forward to seeing you guys, and all the best. I will be in Scotland a few times, so we'll definitely have to catch up and maybe have a game.
Yeah, listen. A few of them actually threw it out there that they reckon they could give you a run for your money. I'm not so convinced, mate. But listen, when you're up in Scotland, we're obviously in touch. It'd be great to catch up with you. Maybe you could come down and visit the club one evening. I'm sure the boys would absolutely love that.
Yeah, that would be a great thing, because a lot of the exhibitions that we go in, we'll be starting up the exhibition circuit again, and a lot of the times I do visit Scotland. So yeah, it would be great. I mean, see you guys maybe play some cricket and kind of compete against you in the darts.
We can get you padded up and chucked in the net.
I'll definitely feel fancy my chances with a cricket ball. No ways.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Devon. I know you do a lot of punditry and commentary now. I've heard you a few times now. You speak so very well. I can see your character, your personality. I can see why you got that camaraderie going with the crowd as well. I wish you all the best. If you could hang on for 1 second, I'll catch you at the end. But it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for your time, sir.
Cheers. Thanks a lot for having me, and the insight. Your questions have given me insight into what I needed as well, just to kind of relive. So doing this is, as much as it's a pleasure for you, it's a pleasure for me as well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, sir.